Hi, friends. How you doing? It's Monday, almost 6 p.m. in California, which means it's 9 p.m. in New York. And I'm just thinking about all the stuff I'm listening to here online. You know, Robert David Steele has his interpretation, and SGT Report has their interpretation, X22 has their interpretation, and our President Trump has his interpretation of what's going on. And what occurs to me is, regardless of whose story plays out as a success in the short run, this Western society is not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere at all. And the reason it's not going anywhere at all is because it's morally and ethically stagnant. Absolutely stagnant. The founding fathers who set up our legal system did not plan for three of the outcomes of behaviors that we are witnessing today. First of all, the hoarding of billionaires and trillionaires goes on unabated, as if hoarding had no social consequences. The fact is that this pandemic, which is about 1% fatal for all of the cases that are arising, it's a pandemic that has been planned as a political set of behaviors by the effete elites, the moneyed Illuminati, to basically bring the economy to a halt, to impose a reset, and to destroy the middle class. That's what it's for. It has nothing to do with disease. These diseases that have been developed and deployed from Fort Detrick, Maryland since the 1970s, okay, are a commercial product, the problem reaction solution modality, in which they create the disease, then they develop the vaccine, and we, the people, pay for the vaccine, okay? They're gaming us. They're gaming us. And this entire shutdown is a political game put up by the medical cartel. And the medical cartel, since 1973, is about profiteering on disease, okay? It's turning disease into an industry. Cancer is an industry. AIDS is an industry. And that's what's going on here. And so, until untrammeled greed, the acquisition of unlimited protection rackets profits is brought to a halt, until these trillionaires and billionaires no longer are allowed to do their thing, nothing's going to change. Campaign finance constitutes bribery. That's what it is. That's all it is. That's all it does. It's people with deep pockets paying political entities to do what they want. If you don't have any money, you have no pull at all. This is the mafia. Okay, so those are the two social things, actions that get in the way. The hoarding that is allowed, the monopolies that are allowed, and the bribery that's allowed. The law has not interfered in the predation of the effete elites upon the rest of the people. but those are moral issues. Okay, but the ethical issues have to do with how we communicate. And how we communicate is by insinuation. Okay? I put a couple of letters, BSMA, after my name, and I put up a shingle, and that says that I went to the university. Did I learn anything? Ontologies, taxonomies, theories, all right? Is that helpful in solving problems? Hell no. No, it's the laws of cause and effect that solves problems. But solving problems is not what we are tested on. We're not tested on solving problems. We're tested on regurgitating the theories and taxonomies and ontologies. Right? So academia is really beside the point of civil society because they're not solving problems. They're putting up alternative theories and alternative ways to view things that have nothing to do with solving problems. So we have three kinds of ethical issues that are not openly, have you been watching the videos on narcissism? There's a bunch of them. There's Dr. Ramani and there's Jordan Peterson, and there's several therapists who are mainly focused on the egoic manipulation of behavior to keep people enslaved. All right. They look at it as an ego distortion. All right, so one of the ego distortions is treachery, which is another way of saying you say one thing, but you mean something else, which is another way of saying lying, which is another way of saying perjury or perfidy. What you're talking about is something you made up in your head, and it is not in accord with what's true. Okay, that's the first problem. Is it illegal? No, it is no longer illegal. Obama made it perfectly legal by his executive orders that the government can propagate propaganda that's not true, right? And I remember it was in Florida where the court system adopted the practice of accepting perjured information as part of evidence. So people aren't even expected to tell the truth. In fact, under the epistemology of the occult, New Age, secular movement, there's no such thing as objective truth. Okay? So truth is the first obstacle that the rich want to get rid of. And the second one is the tactic that we call robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's what socialism is. You take the resources away from the people who do the work and you give it to the people who are lazy. From each according to their ability, to each according to their need. All you have to do to qualify for obtaining in a socialist society is need, okay? And so I keep in my in-mail box, I keep getting these emails from, do you qualify for the grant? Do you qualify for the I don't know what they call it, a benefit? Do you qualify for the benefit? And what they want you to do is grovel. You want to grovel? I don't want to grovel. I don't like that. All right, so robbing from Peter to pay Paul is exactly what this latest congressional bill that's sending us $600 is doing. It's robbing Peter to pay Paul. But what is it doing about restoring the relationships, the professional relationships we had, the commercial relationships we had, the people we knew who solved problems and knew how to be effective and knew how to make things happen? $600, believe me, isn't doing anything about that. In fact, money doesn't do anything to restore the relationships among the people who used to work together, but the company went bankrupt because of the pandemic's false doctrine that we have to shut everything down and put diapers on our face. I'm becoming very cynical, very cynical. And the third thing, of course, is playing both ends against the middle. It's criticizing public figures in public in order to incite distrust, disloyalty, and division between ideologies, cultures, genders, races, whatever. Because conflict creates revenue, creates turnover. And so in the media business, the more conflict you have, the more papers you sell. And it's true that the mainstream media is being abandoned because their lying and perjuring is so blatant. The problem with that is, all right, so I'm not going to watch the TV anymore. I'm not going to go to ABC, NBC, BBC, whatever anymore. Where do I go now? Who am I going to believe? Our problem is not going to be resolved even if our president's authority and tenure is preserved. And the reason is because he doesn't have successors waiting to step into his shoes when he leaves, whether it's a month from now or 4 years and a month from now. Leadership has not been taught as a skill of social problem solving in this country since Dr. John Warfield died, because he was the one doing the work. And he died in the 90s. Problem solving as a technology for garnering the consensus of a group of stakeholders in a problem is simply not even talked about, considered, or addressed. But until we take that step, we're teetering on the edge of this Marxist hell that the left is trying to create. And so for those of you young people who are still at university, I'm pleading with you to turn away from your Marxist studies and go to either the public policy department or the communication department, or maybe even the engineering department, because John Warfield was an engineer, and start looking at how societies and cultures solve their problems utilizing computer-assisted technologies to form the consensus. See, the problem with the problem is it's probably scattered. All the people dealing with it are in a network, and bringing them together is a real task. All right, but that's not what's happening. What's happening is further divisions and divisions and divisions and analyses. This guy's analyses, that one's analysis. We're all busy defining the problem, but there is no pulling us together to find the solution, the operating causes and effects in the problem, so that we can put our finger on where to make a correction. And that's why I'm not very optimistic right now. I'm trying. And I'm having a very difficult time identifying with what I'm seeing, because it's not very rational. Kyla says, Merry Christmas. That's sweet of you, dear. But Christmas is a time, a silent night, when a small child coming out of the mist of oblivion is brought into incarnation in order to make a difference and make a change in the world. And yes, we are certainly at the point where that is needed. We need people to show up and make a change and make a difference in the world. And I want to encourage any of you who think you can do that. Well, you just show up. Okay, you show up too. That's what we have to do, because our culture, our constitutional common law culture is going down the toilet because it's not being taught by our educators. Kindergarten through university, the schools have been turned over to the Marxists. And if parents don't realize this, if they don't realize they're bringing up children who absolutely hate and despise the nation that they're growing up in, they're going to have a nasty surprise. Yeah. Because change has to be in the direction of causes and effects in a process that turns out a good result. And that's called justice. A good result is justice. And that's not what bribed legislators do. That's not what rich oligarchs do. Okay? That's not what liars do. That's not what protection rackets do. And that's not what robbing Peter to pay Paul or slandering your neighbor or the other point of view or the other church is going to do. All this division is not going to fix it, baby. Sorry. We have a lot of work to do. Kyla says, my 20-year-old daughter cannot read a clock because the schools don't teach how to read an analog clock. Can you believe it? And have you looked at their handwriting? Have you looked at their penmanship? How do they take an examination in college if they can't write legibly? How do they fill out a check? How do they read a letter? Our education system has failed us, and the economic gaming coming at us from Wall Street has failed us. And the church, which has decided to be nice, it's nice to be nice, has failed to teach strong backbone. Churches don't teach backbone anymore. They don't teach telling the truth and being honest and decent and godly anymore. All right. All this having been said, we're in the season awaiting the innocent child who's going to come and make a difference. And so I'm calling out to all of you young children under 30 who think you want to make a difference, okay? I'm explaining to you the policies and the behaviors and the attitudes that need to be changed in order for things to change, okay? We have to change our attitude about hoarding, waste, okay? Just use, consume, and discard, okay? And our attitude about bribing politicians. We've got to change those things. We've got to change from telling our wishes and calling that a truth to talking about truth as an objective reality. It's 68 degrees outside. I have $60 in my bank account, and our city has decided to defund the police. Now, these are facts. Deal with it. All right? These are facts. You got to deal with it. You got to start looking around for the protection rackets that have been set up to make Certain people live off the labor of other people. Look around for that. And when you see it, say something. When you see it, say something. And finally, as a matter of personal integrity, don't attack people personally because you don't like what they do. Talk about the behavior in terms of the behavior. When I see that people are becoming poor and losing their jobs because they believe a lie that a disease is going to kill us all, but that isn't true, then I call upon the people who are making these false fears known to shut the fuck up. Okay? Sometimes we have to be a little direct with our language because we don't get listened to any other way. You know that. And there's a lot of very sloppy naming, blaming, and shaming and threatening and predicting going on. So let's be careful. I'll be careful. You'll be careful. And this Friday, which is Christmas, we'll pray for the child to come who will show us a new way. How about that? This has been Emily Windsor Craig. And yes, subscribe and hit the bell and all that if you want to. I'm free. Bye.